Good job answering questions so far. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and go back to what Ann Lewis brought up about the Cowlitz Casino coming in. When you guys, about a year and a half into your term, if you get elected now, you're going to have to deal with some tough issues. If indeed we lose 30 to 40%, my question to you is, what services will you cut? Per capita, jobs, or what are you going to cut? Because I think that's what it's going to boil down to. We don't have any economic development. We've kind of failed in that area, and in fact, we're in the hole. I'm just kind of wondering, when those tough decisions come around, what is your point of view on what needs to be cut?
Who would like to go take a moment to think about your answer, and then I'll ask for a volunteer to go first. Let's assume for the sake of the question that there's $30 million out of our $130 million budget that we have for all the services. What would you look at first? Denise?
Well, I think we always have to look at what our needs are in the community and what our wants are. We've done a few things over the last couple of years that have been some pretty big wants, but they were not needs. And I don't want to reflect back on decisions, but Cowlitz has been coming down the line for a long time. It didn't just happen yesterday. We've known about this, and we've known about the position that the tribe has taken on this. And so really sitting down and really thinking about that, what are our needs here and what are our wants? I mean, somebody wanted an HR building. We didn't need an HR building, but we got one for $4 million. But we didn't need one, but somebody wanted one, We wanted, and I love the arbor. I love everything that's went, but we didn't have to have it, but some people wanted it. I like it. I think it's beautiful. I'm okay with it, but that's $1 million later. So we really have to sit down and think about that when we're making those decisions, even at the casino. I want to put upgrades in the casino, but what about, do we need millions of dollars in sponsorships going out? We have marketing, we have media, we have our community fund that actually kind of works as a little bit like an advertisement thing for the tribe. But then we have all these other arms of sponsorships, media, marketing, so how do we collaborate the different things? We have a lot of overlapping services in our tribe, and I think we need to we need to pull those together. We need to really look at how we're structured. I think our structuring needs to be reorganized a little bit, so we don't have overlapping services. We have positions being posted in departments where the client base has reduced by 50%, but we're still advertising for the job positions in that department when somebody's left or whatever. So I think the reorganization piece really needs to be looked at, and how do we prevent overlapping, and how do we make cutbacks without taking away the needs of our people. So I'm not looking at cutting per capita or anything majorly drastic. I think there's a lot of nip and tuck that could be taken across the board at the casino here, but at the same time we still need to enhance our property that we have that is our moneymaker. I mean, it needs to be kept nice. That's the cash cow.
Thanks, Denise. Kathleen, you go next.
So, Clifford, I think in the context of your question, you said, a year and a half from now, it comes. What do you cut? And my honest answer to you today, I don't know. But that's why I want us to do this kind of contingency budgeting that I mentioned earlier now. And this is no small thing to ask people to do. This is a horrible exercise for a manager. You have your budget. Every manager is hoping that their budget will remain as it is, or maybe they're hoping it'll grow. But the assignment to them is, if you had to cut your staff, your expenditures, your tribally funded expenditures, because we do receive a lot of grants and things like that that won't necessarily be affected by reductions in casino revenue. So your casino-supported revenue, if those had to be cut by 40% or by 20%, how would you approach that? And it's a terrible exercise to ask managers to do, but we need to do it. That'll tell us what they think the most critical services that they're providing are. The other thing that it allows our council and our leadership to do is take that information across program and see if they agree. I think we would agree that, for example, something like our elder services, our healthcare services, we would want to protect those as long as we could. That has to do with the direct health and welfare of our membership. And we would have to give up some of the likes instead of needs that Denise is talking about. But I say that's why we need to do that now, so that we can develop that list of priorities before we need to implement it, because those are very difficult decisions to make. But it's something we need to do anyway. We need to identify what we consider our critical services. And that's something that we haven't done, which has prevented us from really defining and protecting and developing clear rules for our endowments. And that's something we have to address immediately. As it's been explained recently at a general council meeting by Chris Leno, those really difficult decisions about what are those essential services we want the endowments to fund not been made. And it's a tough decision to make. But what's the consequence of not making it? Then we don't identify what our target is, and we haven't developed clear rules to protect those endowments. And we need to do that. That's what those endowments were for, fundamentally. They were for when the casino revenues take a hit. Because our council had the wisdom to know someday that'll happen. But what we haven't had the discipline to do is make the hard decisions so that we can identify those targets. And we need to make very clear rules about what we will spend out of those endowments and what we won't. And we haven't done that. And I hope that that's something that we will take on in the very near future.
Monty.
So, the short, easiest answer is, like Kathleen said, until you actually elect us to council, it's kind of difficult to say what you would actually do. I'm not, this is no crystal ball, and I can't, give you a definitive answer. Don't hold me to anything I'm about to say, because without knowing all the parameters, it's kind of difficult to just look into the future. Things like, we can go down a laundry list of things. As far as like the arbor. Now see, I like the arbor. Even if it did cost $1 million, we were spending $150,000 a year to rent that big old tent. So that arbor is going to pay for itself in 7 years flat. 7 years flat, it will have paid for itself, and it's pure money after that. That's money we aren't spending renting a circus tent. So that's one area where I think we made a sound investment. We did a smart thing there. But like the community pool, wrong time. Wrong time for something like that. It's a huge outlay. It involves $250,000 just to operate it every year. If we're going to spend money, why not spend it acquiring something that's already built, that's a revenue stream, because people will pay to come and use it. That makes more sense to me. Then it can kind of pay for itself instead of us just outlaying a bunch of money. It's not something that we need right now. Not when we're staring down the barrel of a gun. And that's what the Cowlitz Casino kind of is. It's the barrel of a gun. There's a number of things that I would like to see us not do, and that's go on one of these cost-cutting binges like council did under the advice of our general management and stuff a while back. I'm the proud son of a single parent who has worked her fanny off her entire life to provide for me. And that also means that she's worked here because she's worked for our tribe for 20 years. And if you ever see that woman, say thank you to her. Her name is Sharon. She works down in the optical department now, but she toiled away in a windowless office for over 12 years at the clinic. And for little to no thanks, right? All she wants to do is get to retirement. And what do? They cut her position and dropped her to a job that paid $10 less an hour. That is not the right thing to do. That is unfair to a tribal member that has worked that many years for our tribe. I would like to see us let go of non-native people first. If you're gonna let go of somebody, you let go of somebody who's non-native first. If it's a key position, obviously it comes down to the same kinds of things as hiring practices. But if you have two people who are equally qualified for a position, sorry, the non-native person goes. We have to take care of our tribal members. That is our job we take care of our tribe, right? That's who we're supposed to be looking out for. In fact, I think that came up at one of the general council meetings. What was, council's primary job, and it was to look out for the health and benefit and welfare of all tribal members. And the trusts, I thought it was really interesting you brought up the trusts. Yeah, and so if we know how many tribal members we're gonna have left, if we keep going down this road where we've disenrolled people and stuff, then I guess we can start cutting our endowments. That's someplace we can start cutting from, because we're not gonna need to send as many people to college, because we're not gonna exist in 20 years. So there's a quick solution to that problem. Yeah, so I'll hand it off to Michael now.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, Kathleen really stole everything I was going to say. But, there's a thing called zero-based budgeting. And right now we have a budget, and it's really kind of just a continuation from the previous year's budget. With zero-based budgeting, every line item has to be analyzed and justified every single year. And that's exactly what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to go to zero-based budgeting, where we look at every single line item, because 20% or 40% is a big hit. It could be up to $20 million. Thankfully, endowments, I hear, are fully funded. There's some question whether they actually are fully funded, because we don't have the expenditures defined. So they shouldn't be impacted by this hit that we're going to take in revenues. It would be some of the other services that we have, possibly. I don't have the information. I don't really know all the programs as well. If I was on council, I'd have access to all that information, and sure, you're going to go through and you're going to have to prioritize by needs and wants. You need to have a contingency, just like she said, like Kathleen said. But really, it's our endowments. We need to define those, so there could be another hit to our revenues in the future. That needs to be fully defined, and they need to be protected. That's how we weather these things.
I agree with Kathleen and Michael here with the zero budget. We have to look at the infrastructure, start there, and just go line by line and cut the fat. If you don't need a top of the line tablets, go find them and use the cheaper ones or whatever. It could be cut as even ordering pens and pencils. There's a way to get by that too. So without having the information and being able to look at it and say, oh, right here, this is a want, this is a need. I think if I make it to council, that's what I would have to do, is look at each one and go from there. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm gonna so we're already 2 hours in. I told you 2 hours would go really fast. So I'm gonna probably let just one or two more questions. You have a question? And then we'll go to the closing statements.
Good morning. My name is Kristy Summers, tribal number 2920. I was born and raised down there in Klamath, Chiloquin. Chiloquin is my home. So I come from a rough neighborhood, but I know my culture. I grew up Indian dancing, been around it all my life. Grew up with the rodeo business. My dad was a rodeo contractor. We had horses and bulls. So I know what it is to work. I get up every morning, 5 o'clock, ready to go feed the chickens and the cows, but I don't have them. They're at the ranch. So I go to work, and I don't mind working. And that's what I want to know, what you're going to do for the membership, the tribe. How are you going to work for the membership, the person, each individual? What is your goal when you get up and you go to that office? How are you going to make your stand present to the council, the other 8 members? And how are you going to pass that through and try to get, a good censorship from everybody without all this animosity?
So Monty, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'll take that one right off the bat. So I really appreciate your comments, Kristy. I'm very traditional. One of my great achievements at Portland State this year was I actually sued my university for the right to smudge in my apartment every day. And I won with the help of the ACLU. I won the right for all Indigenous people at Portland State to smudge in their apartments and in their university housing, their dorm rooms and stuff. So I'm able to finally do that now. I get up every day and I smudge and I pray. And I come to our powwows and I dance men's tradition. I sweat. And I have a native name that I sweated hard for and did ceremonies for. I learned to speak Chinook Wawa as my foreign language requirement for my master's and my bachelor's. I take a great deal of interest in it, and it's something that I would love to see, and you'll see it in my candidate statement, but I think we need to start observing those traditional practices in all of our governmental workings. You know, we hold, until I won that court case, what we did was 5 days a week at the Native American Student Center, we had a smudging at 9 a.m. every day for anybody who wanted to come and attend. I think that smudging should happen in our government tribal offices. We should have an opportunity to show up for work and smudge, so you're of right mind and right heart when you start doing your job. Kind of like clocking in. Well, I want to clock in with smudge. That's how I want to clock in. And just, let that guide my mind and my heart for the day's, for the day's journey. And that means whatever board you sit on, whatever you're doing, just going about it of a right heart and right mind that you're going to do, you're doing what you do because I signed on. I'm asking for this job. I'm interviewing for this job right now. It's because I want to work for you. And that means that's what I'll do.
Who would like to go next? Anybody? Denise?
I will just say, my years working for the tribe and when I got elected to council and every day that I worked here, that's what I did. I got up every day. I came to work. I drove an hour and 15 minutes to get here. And I was proud to be here. And I was proud to do whatever I could do for my people. There's many different variations of that. There's working for the organization. I've identified many gaps. That's one of the reasons I ran for council, because I found as I could try and identify those gaps and make differences that would be for the betterment of our people. You hit a lot of walls. I got kind of tired of bouncing off the walls, so I thought, well, I'll run for council and I'll be able to make that difference. And I can't change everything on my own. I hope to bring people to the table that have either like minds or the education and the knowledge and the fortitude to move things forward, to make a difference. And I do, but I think there's a lot of good people out there and they all have, their ideas, and it's just a matter of being able to pull that together, because I think most of us that are here, several of us on council, we don't need this job. We can go get a job anywhere else. Some people will take cut and pays for the job to be on council. Some people, they always talk about the big salary, and I think there's quite a few of us on council that were making more or the same amount of money when we weren't on council. We came to council because we wanted to be there, because we wanted to make a difference for our people. So I think having that attitude and getting up, and I know I just came from a White House summit, and one of the messages were there every day, regardless of the negative people out there, the haters, whatever you want to call them. When you're passionate about what you're doing and you get up every morning and you go to work because you want to make a difference and you want to do what's right, that's what matters. And that you'll get through all the hard times and they're not going to bring you down, and you remain strong and you remain humble and you're doing it for the right reasons. You will someday, it may take us time, but we will someday make a difference.
Thanks for your question, Kristy. I think when you think about when you get up every day and you go, if we were so honored to serve our community on tribal council, what do we want to bring to that every day? And I hope what I can do over time is work to make tribal council's discussions more open and available to the membership. There's been a lot of talk recently, and people are in some ways maybe kind of tired of hearing about it, but I really think that until we're more transparent, we need to keep talking about it. A lot of our conversations are routinely in executive session. And we need to say why, if we're going to keep information from the membership. I understand that if an issue is truly private, a good example would be an HR issue. That needs to be private. We understand that. But that's something that can be shared with the membership, and we can understand why. Right now, there are many discussions that are just routinely labeled executive session, and I would like to work towards a more transparent tribal council, and if I could make a difference on that, working with the council over time, that would be one of my highest goals. Another is to work with the council to help the council focus on what I think really is ultimately the council's job, which is being the elected executive and legislative government of our tribe and our policy leaders, representing our tribe and our tribe's interests at the state level, at the federal level, whenever our tribal rights or interests are threatened or in play. It seems to me that our tribal council has gotten extremely involved in micromanaging some of our major departments. That council and political pressure is put on hirings and firings where, in most governments, your elected leaders would be standing clear of that. They would be letting their HR policies implement themselves, and they would be letting that process handle itself. I think we need to remove political pressure from our HR process. And we need to hire, the best people, provide them the training and support they need to excel, and let them do their jobs. And let our executive director or general manager do what a general manager should do, which is be responsible for a team of, professional, well-paid people who he or she will hold accountable for doing their jobs. And if they're not done, that's how you take care of it. You take care of it in that process. And so, anybody who's elected to council is one of a team of 9. And so, anybody who says, I'm going to go in there and change this, that's a dream. We're working with 8 other people, but those are 2 of the big goals. When you say, what is the work of tribal council that I would like to work on, to focus our tribal council on what is our most important work at that governmental level.
Thanks, Kathleen. Michael or Jackie?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something different. I don't really have anything different to add to that. No, just being available is the biggest thing. I want people to feel like they can come to my office and talk to me. An internal audit, every audit I do, we get a survey that comes back about us and how we performed our audit. Routinely, I get that I was well-versed in the subject and I was a great listener. In fact, listening to me is the most critical part of that, because that's how you gain trust. So for me on council, I promise I will listen to everybody, what they have to say. I do have to warn people sometimes though, because now I feel like I'm bragging, but because I'm a good listener, sometimes believe I've agreed with them just because I listened to what they had to say. So it's kind of a danger within that. They'll go out and speak as if I've agreed with them, but really I'm just listening to what they had to say. So I think for me, tribal council, I'll be available. I'll answer questions as good as I can. I won't shy from it. I won't abstain from votes unless I have a reason that's a conflict of interest. I will put myself out there, and hopefully they're decisions that everybody supports in the end. But I will definitely, you will know how I feel if I'm on council. I guarantee that.
What I hope I would bring to council, what I would do is come into council with a clear mind and thoughtfulness in my daily duties. Be there, be responsible, represent the tribe in the best manner that I'm capable of. And I agree with Michael, listening is important, but I've been in that situation too where they thought I was agreeing with what was going on because they came and told me. That's not the case. You have to look at the big picture whenever an issue or someone makes a statement. Don't react negatively, you know. And I guess it would be just be available for comments, answer my phones and emails. I don't like it when people don't answer, or it takes days to get through to them. I know that it's an important position, and sometimes you're on travel status for maybe the whole week, but leave a message stating that, and I'll get back to you when I return to the office. Just be respectful of others is another important part, you know, when you're working with 9 people. Somebody told Kathleen something that she thought was really a good thought or something, and before I would answer, I would get my facts first, find out if this is really true that we're going to go eat lunch at the C-store, or are we going to go to the deli, you know, and both cases they were wrong, we were going to the buffet. Yeah, so, you know, you need to research things that in a serious manner, and try to have a good understanding with the topic at hand. Be compassionate, but not too compassionate. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. So does anyone have a burning short question? Yeah, go over here and a new question. This will be the last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to folks for their closing statements.
Miranda Rodriguez, roll number 3028. Most of you would know me as Miranda Provost, growing up out here, being on royalty since I was tiny tot and toothless and cut my own bangs and that kind of stuff. Oh my gosh. So I kind of have like a brief statement and then 2 questions. So correct me, because I'm feeling pretty sick. A lot of people know I have a spinal disease, and growing up, Hava was my entire life. It helped me get through quite a bit growing up. So not being able to dance is kind of hard. So my side of things are both political and culturally involved, because the issue that I'm having is reading back on as much as I can, and I'm a little foggy today because my medicine is kind of, you know, makes me dizzy and sick and all that great stuff. So I don't remember when it was, but it was stated, I believe, towards maybe restoration or something like that. Basically, after everyone was assimilated and put into, you know, typical society, someone said, I think it was one of the judges or something like that, that you're no longer A, B, and C tribe, you're a Grand Ronde. And so from there, it kind of like led to a belief that that's what we must claim in order to be accepted by the government. And my issue with that is, it's fine to be proud of where you come from, but we need to remember where our ancestors came from. So, I mean, I don't oppose the idea of being Grand Ronde. I oppose the idea of being, you know, claiming true Grand Ronde when most of the people my age don't know where their families came from. I could track my generation back 6 generations and more if I really, really got into it. You know, growing up, I was a teen mom, and most people out here, you know, started talking very, very badly about me. You know, I graduated high school, I had my bachelor's degree, I have a 7-year-old daughter who is the world to me. So growing up out here in Grand Ronde, you know, being a little scrawny farm girl to being on royalty almost my entire life is kind of, it led me to be a stronger woman, and some of the things I faced, it makes me realize we have some issues within the political system of our tribe. One is people want to remove the cultural aspect to our government. If we're a sovereign nation and we want to change something, we should not oppose the idea of changing something. Maybe we don't like the way it's being changed, but we definitely need to find a forefront that fits most of the members. So having these opposing ideas and whatnot is something that's going to only help us in the future. So having that conversation with someone who has the opposing view of you can only help. So the 2 questions I have are, So 20 years from now, we seem to not have even a 5-year plan as to what we're going to do. So my thing for the first one really goes with Kathleen's idea of knowing where we sit blood quantum wise, because as it sits, I will not push my daughter, because growing up, obviously being out here, there was a lot of people I was around. Even considering dating anyone was disgusting because it seemed like I was related to everyone. So the first question is will there be, or could there be a capacity to have a full DNA test run through the entire tribe to see how many bloodlines are actually related and composed of one another? Even being 3rd and 4th, 5th cousins, we can't do that. So we cannot keep inbreeding. The second question is, obviously with the votes, there's always an issue going on. So will there be able to be an on-site voting either at the tribe or a BIA agency, and that way when ballots are mailed in, it's less work that way? So can we compose DNA testing to see where we're at in 20 years, how many people can actually marry each other safely, and the second, possible on-site voting?
So let me see if I can paraphrase, Miranda, that question here. The first is, would you all as candidates support having some kind of, because I don't think DNA would actually do it, because DNA doesn't actually tell you which indigenous lines you would have. But I think what you're asking for is essentially an assessment of our blood lines, to assess the many, many bands that we have, to essentially to get a sense of where we stand with our blood quantum and all our indigenous. Yeah, to make sure, just delineate the various families somehow. And then the second one is would you encourage greater in-person voting? There are drop boxes at the government center on the day. People can register and vote on the same day, but that's only in one spot. So I guess that would you encourage other areas in our Portland, Eugene, and other areas for folks to be able to go in and vote in person as well, not just through the mail. And if you could real quick, so just 2 minutes, because I want to give you guys time, and I want us to all get back for brand entry in 45 minutes. So just try to do a minute each on each of those. Denise, go ahead.
I think there's a lot of conversations that need to happen around that. Where we're going to be in 20 years. I think, define who our descendants are. I have asked that for a long time because we actually give benefits to our descendants. We pay for the first 30 days when they're born and in the hospital. They use their Indian Health Services by their parents, enrolled parents' tribal ID number. So we have a tracking device, but we don't do DNA on the descendants, so we don't know, and we don't track them. And I've never been able to figure out why we don't do that, because we need that information for our future. So that would be one area I would start, and getting some of the numbers that, Kathleen even asked for in some of our enrollment meetings, education meetings. Those numbers are really important, and I don't know what it's going to take to actually move that forward. I asked, enrollment said they didn't have the time or the staff to do it, but I really wanted to give it to our auditor because she's very good at that kind of pulling those statistics together, and she's independent of the enrollment department, and so I'm hoping that we can at least get a start on that. I don't know about families, marrying families. When I look back at history, I think there's about 75% of the tribe that has come from one tree. So I don't know, and I guess those are things that you in society you necessarily can't control. That's up to the individuals and their personal beliefs and wherewithal, I guess. So anyhow,
The second question about voting, in-person voting.
Well, we have in-person voting now for our council elections. I don't know that we would ever establish a BIA office here, and that we even have the authority or the choice to make that. So that's a more national decision making that we don't really control that decision. So I don't know if that would be an option. But one of the things, and there's another council person too, that we have actually proposed, we would actually like the voting process done privately, not within the tribe, and hire a third party.
Oh, so hire a third party.
Yeah, because I just think it's cleaner that way. There's no concern. I mean, I know it's a cost, but that's what I would prefer to do.
Okay. Kathleen, let's go to you next.
Okay, well, Miranda, I think your question comes right to your first question, right to the heart of the tension between the traditional way, that tribal people lived and brought people into their tribe and identified their own people, right? For those of us who have looked at some of our old historic documents, this struggle that we're having in this tribe right now, this is not the first time or the last time, this tribe has been struggling with trying to know who's a Grand Ronde tribal member and who isn't a Grand Ronde tribal member. There's old censuses and old BIA efforts to come out here, and BIA wanted to know who's an Indian and who's a not. And in those days, if the right chief said he's a Grand Ronde, he was. And that's how it happened. And, it's not traditional for us to marry in our own tribe, right? People traditionally reached out and formed an alliance and brought new people into the tribe. And when you came into a tribe, become part of a family, you became that tribe. And that's at odds with the way we track these bloodlines down to 1/32nd or 100th and something. And those are just completely different systems. And so I think the way we currently define, and that's what we've just been struggling with, and we will continue to struggle with Grand Ronde blood, there's a huge debate in our community and a split among people who do not want any Indian blood that they do not consider Grand Ronde blood to be able to be considered as part of your tribal identity. Because none of us are actually fractions, right? Not one of us is a fraction. We're people who are born into our tribal families, and therefore we belong. And then there's other folks who say, it has always been the case that tribal people have traveled and married other people and joined other tribes and moved forward and become part of that community. And I think to really move forward and to have a future, as you're saying, the vast majority of our tribal members do not marry other tribal members, and that is unlikely to change. So if you just follow the map, we will quantum out shortly. So I got to tell you, I don't have an answer to your question, but I know the question you're asking is critical, and that tension between what is traditional, embracing our children as our members and moving forward as a community, versus tracing these fractions, that were created long ago and often inaccurately. There's an inherent tension between those two, and we as a tribe, to move forward and have our own definition of who our people is, we have to come to terms with that. And I don't think I have anything to add on the voting box, the elections that the BIA implements. Unfortunately, we have to deal with their processes, and that's not ideal, but as long as they're implementing, constitutional amendments, unfortunately, I think we're stuck with that.
Okay, thanks, Kathleen. Monty.
I'm Miranda. So, to the first point, I know that we are using DNA tests to determine if an infant is belonging to a Grand Ronde parent, if there's some question about the parentage. So, kind of Maury Povich, you are the father kind of thing. Which is kind of sad. But I do know that goes on. As far as the rest of it though, I'm really leery to have DNA testing become involved. Now, that's not to say that maybe we couldn't do a pilot project, but how many of you out there, and I say you as in anybody who's viewing this, anybody in the tribal membership, how many of you have a full blood left in your family? We're one of the whitest tribes in the United States here, and there's no denying that, okay? We've all got it. I've got Scandinavian and French Canadian blood. I know my history and everything. I know that we are from Table Rock, down south. We're Umpqua and Rogue, or, it bugs me that we even have Rogue River on our thing when it's really Takelma. We're Takelma Indians, not Rogue River. But that's something I'd love to see change one of these days. It should say Umpqua, Takelma, Shasta, but be that as it may. gotten Chinook relatives and Silettes and stuff. I know where my blood comes from. I also know that when the enrollment department did the genealogy for us, we found out we had Assiniboine blood from southern Canada, from the French-Canadian part of the family. So that's really great to know. And can we track all that via DNA? I think we open ourselves up to having a whole bunch of, first of all, it goes back to the same thing I was saying about CIBs and us doing the government's work of exterminating us ourselves. Why is science always right? This is one of the things that we talk about when we lecture on indigenous nations and indigenous rights and everything, is that we have our own ways of knowing. We have indigenous ways of knowing and indigenous ways of doing things. We used to adopt people into tribes, right? That's something we legitimately did, and we don't do that anymore because of all this, DNA and legal. I mean, there's just so much. I'm kind of, I'm getting sick to death of hearing about what the Bureau of Indian Affairs tells us we can and can't do. It's time for us to pull rank and say, no, step off, kick rocks. Here's how we're gonna do it. Don't like it, kick rocks. This is what we're doing. So, I guess that might seem kind of cavalier or maverick to some people, but I think it's what we should do.
On the second part, real quick, on the voting, Monty, on the voting.
Well, it's my understanding we already have on-site voting. You can come and drop your ballot off the day of. I mean, if we were to open live polling places or something, I mean, the only people that serves are the people that are here in the immediate area. Right now, I think our vote by mail system serves the majority of the tribal membership in the best way possible.
Okay, great. Michael.
The thing about our cousins, that's everywhere. Every reservation I know that exists. It's not unique to our tribe. And in fact, there's all kinds of memes I've seen now that we have Facebook about how we have to be careful and make sure we introduce ourselves if we're family or not. Scientifically speaking, it really has no impact on your children unless it's a generation after generation type thing. Then you might have some issues around the genetics within that. Brother, sister, or first cousin, then repeating that process. There really isn't a lot of hang-ups on it scientifically. But the weird feelings still exist. The in-person voting, I don't really know. I know we have some of it, but I don't think it's. I like the mail-in. It's a process the state of Oregon uses. I think it's the most efficient. The question is, people feel like there's a lot of votes that weren't counted somehow, or some gaps there. So getting some feedback for what happened there would be great. I'm not opposed to in-person voting, but I really don't know a lot about that process, but I would be opposed to it.
Thank you. And Jackie.
Okay, with the cousin thing, I think you need to talk to your elders. They know who's who. And, just do the research, and if you're interested in somebody, and you think maybe, well, that's just kind of a red flag, stop, And with the voting, I think that using the third party, and that would be the best way. It's not involved with any one person that's in the tribe working on the election committee. I think that using the third party would be good. I'm not opposed to people coming in and voting the same day. I think our process is pretty good right now, but I don't know about these ballots that didn't get counted, or maybe they weren't signed right, or, there's always a percentage there. The mail-in, I think, is great, most efficient, as Michael stated. I think that's about it.
Great, thanks, Jackie. So I'm going to give the candidates and Monty a second to get back up here and give you guys a moment to begin formulating your closing statement. Please make it about a minute. I will be pretty strict on limiting it to about a minute. But I did want to talk a little bit about that last voting issue because, again, in Oregon, one of the most progressive states in the United States, we could learn a lot. So this year, for example, in Multnomah County, when I voted in the primary this year, they had a new text message notification. So that every ballot we send in has a barcode, right? So you have a unique identifier on your vote. What Multnomah County now does is that when they scan my vote, I get a text message that tells me your vote has just been counted. So I know for a fact that my vote was just registered and counted, and I don't have to worry about it being one of the 500 that yesterday wasn't counted for some reason. That's technology has made that available to our other governments. That's something we as a tribe can look into. That's just a very simple thing that I think we at the PAC would support the tribe looking at doing. It would make me feel much more confident in our electoral process that my vote is counted. So, with that being said, I'm going to ask for a volunteer to start, or why don't we do this? Why don't we start with you, Jackie, because you've been kind of going the tail end of quite a bit. Let's have a minute closing statement, and then I'm going to have a few final words at the end.
I just want to thank the PAC for putting on these forums because I think they're informative for all of you as well as the candidates. I'm Margaret Provost's daughter. I didn't mention that in the beginning. And I worked on the restoration efforts from day one with my mother until we were restored. We started in about 72, and I understand the government, the steps that you have to take, and sometimes we would go to introduce ourselves or explain what we were trying to get support from affiliated NCIA and all the levels of the government, from the county, state, federal. Atia's told us, well, you need to get 900 signatures. You need to advertise. You need to get newsletters out to your members. So with no money, we weren't funded in any way, shape, or form. We did this ourselves. We knocked on doors. It started out to be like a database, but then it went into like a census roll, and then that's where the restoration roll started. In '83 was from that database. It was very interesting, and I just thank everybody for supporting me, and I ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I'm sorry.
Okay, so again, thanks, especially Brian, Chris. It's great that you guys do this. I've always appreciated it. It's different being on this side of it for a change, but I just want to add, there's a lot to discuss, and it's hard to do it all here within this format. But I do have a website, the number 4, michael-langley.com, and I'll be talking more about in depth in these things. If you're interested, check it out. It's only got one post on it right now, but there'll be more. But one of the things that we run into in internal audit, and it's not as much now, but when we first started, because we didn't do operational audits at the casino, they were all compliance audits. You would get some pushback from the people that you were auditing that, how do you know my job better than I do? And they're right. We don't know their job as well as they do, but what we do know is process. And that's the important thing, because when I look at the failures that we've had as a tribe, whether economically, even maybe this enrollment process, it all comes down to a failure in process. And so I'm not going to know everybody's position as well, but what I do know is process. And so if I am elected, that'll be a focus of mine, is making sure that we have great processes, great policy and procedures, and then that we follow them. So again, thanks everybody for the time.
Thanks, Mike.
When's my time start? Rick,
I've got the,
ready? No, I don't want to seem like I'm not taking this serious because I totally am. I'm also a little punchy from not enough blood sugar. So, I just want to say this. I am the proverbial native son. I grew up out here. I used to throw pine cones at cars on the highway at the Holman Apartments where my gram lived. You know, my uncle Kenneth was your natural resources officer. He was your first forestry officer guy. I mean, my family is entrenched in this area. My mom used to bring me with her on Thursday evenings for council meetings at the old cemetery with Margaret Provost and Jackie Provost and Jackie Colton and all those people. And I grew up admiring those people for what they did. I remember all the powwows at the Grand Ronde gym at the little elementary school and stuff. So as far as my bona fides go about being from here and rooted to this area, there's no question about that. But I went away and I worked for some Fortune 500 companies and I learned a lot. And I worked for our tribe's casino. And, you know, I was there at the first Spirit Mountain Stampede, got kicked by a bull. It was a lot of fun. But I want to put all that to work now. This is the next logical step for me. The tribe's given me so many blessings. And now at 43, I'm ready to really give back in a big way. So that's what I'm asking for you to give me a chance to do.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, I too want to thank Brian and the PAC for this opportunity. And there's going to be more next weekend in Portland and the following weekend in Eugene. And I want to encourage all the folks online, if you can make those in person, please do. And I want to ask you, ask us questions. This is your opportunity to do that. And anybody who wants to be your council person should be answering your questions and addressing the issues facing our tribe. I think we need folks today on Tribal Council who can come to the table ready to work for our tribe. We need to understand how government works. We need to understand what our challenges are, and we need to bring skills and experience that will help move our tribe forward. I humbly ask for your support. Working in tribal government for 20 years, I really do think I can help move this tribe forward. Please do get in touch. I too have a website. It's KathleenforTribalCouncil.com. I would love to talk to you more and hear your issues. And please remember that we do have some huge challenges ahead of us. And so the very important decision before you is to pick who is going to be able to help heal our tribe and move us forward. And so I humbly ask for your support. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Yeah, thank you, the PAC. Thank all of you for being here and giving us this opportunity. This is one of the better forums and opportunities that we have to get our message out and to allow the membership to ask us questions. I just want to say I'm up for re-election. I hope that I have all your support. I hope I have new support. I hope I've maintained the support that I've had in the past. And when you're all voting out there, really look at your candidates and what are they bringing to the table. Because for me, I want council people that I can sit down with, have a good dialogue with, have a good debate with. It's not that I want to bring people to the table that are going to agree with everything I say, but I want to be able to have a conversation and I want them to be able to justify the statements and their ideas. I don't always get that. I ask for that sometimes, but I get told we have 5 votes. I don't need to justify it. That's not the answer I'm looking for, because I want to be able to justify anything I do to all of the people and the members of this tribe, and I want the same from other council members. So I have some cards on the back, I have some buttons back there, I have a website, Vote Denise Harvey at WordPress.com. We'll be doing some videos besides these. Our fellow council member Chris has got a hobby going on there, so look forward to that. Please call me, ask me any questions, come to the next PAC meetings, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you. So let's give them a round of applause. Great job, all the candidates. Sincerely, you guys did a great job. It was really impressive, all candidates. I did want to note, what Kathleen noted, is that we have 2 more forums. We have one next weekend in Portland and then the following weekend in Eugene to get our members in those areas an opportunity to ask questions as well. I'm going to thank Clifford Olson. He's actually going to sub for me at the Eugene event. because I will be in Philadelphia. I'm going as an Oregon delegate for the Democratic Party of Oregon to go nominate Hillary Clinton as our Democratic Party. So I'll be in Philadelphia all week, and I'll miss you guys. But have a great time. And then we will send out, so you can talk to any of the folks here, Eric Bernando, other folks, about joining the PAC if you want to vote. What we do is after the third forum, we send out an email. It's a secured email voting system for you all to cast your vote of which of these three great candidates will get our financial support, and it will help pay for our mailing. That'll happen the week after the Eugene forum. So folks, anyone can join that's affiliated with the tribe. Again, you have free $50 to use or lose. So I encourage you all to use it. And again, we'll see you all next week in Portland. Thanks.